Hello, everyone. This is JT Keating, Vice President of Product Strategy here at Zimperium. We're excited to have a new webinar for you folks, and we have a few folks that are coming on. I see that multiple participants are coming forward, so I'm going to just kind of wait for a quick second as everyone starts loading in here. But thank you, folks, for giving us your time. So we're gonna dive in here pretty quick, and today I'm very excited to be joined by our Vice President of Product Management, Brian Peck. Brian has been absolutely critical in working with the folks in Redmond and the team for our Microsoft Defender ATP, as well as some other integrations we'll be talking about. So Brian, thanks for joining me.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm very glad to be here. Thank you, everyone, for joining.
So what we're going to do, the usual perfunctory commentary, I just like to say that because it's a cool word, is we're going to try to keep this to less than 30 minutes. We like to go about 25 minutes of content with 5 minutes of Q&A if everybody has it. If not, we're not the type of company to produce fake questions just to make ourselves sound good. We think everyone's got more important things to do. But if you do have any questions, drop it in the Q&A capability of Zoom. Please don't use the chat capability. We've pretty much disabled it because we've had some issues with it in the past, and so it hasn't been very helpful. So even if you have technical questions, drop it in the Q&A. I do highly suggest following us on social media. We are becoming the source of information for all things mobile security. So please do that as well. So with that, we're going to dive in. And I'm going to briefly explain the Zimperium technology. This is not intended to be a Zimperium product pitch, but when we start talking about the integration, which Brian will spend the majority of time on with Defender ATP, it helps to have kind of a frame of reference on what Zimperium is all about. So we're going to start running through this, and thank you again. By the way, archived version of this will be up within a day or so. And if anybody's interested in the slides, we can provide those to you as well. So first point, an endpoint is an endpoint is an endpoint. It doesn't matter if you've got patient data sitting on a tablet, if you've got patient data sitting on a laptop. If you need to secure that patient data, you need to secure that endpoint. And today, according to most statistics, at least 60% of the endpoints that are accessing the enterprise are mobile. So traditional EDR solutions like Defender ATP have visibility into 40% of the endpoints, not the 60% that are mobile. Microsoft understood this and realized it, which is part of the reason why they've created a nice approach that Brian's going to run us through, where through a single pane of glass, you can see all of your endpoints. And that's going to be a demonstration that we show you here in a little bit. It's important to know kind of the different attack types. This is not an attack webinar or a threat webinar, but there are big buckets, 4 different primary attack vectors. Now, since we're talking about an endpoint's an endpoint, the laws of cybersecurity still apply. One of the main laws of cybersecurity that apply to mobile, just like everything else, is persistence. The bad guys want to be persistent as long as possible, and no matter what device they're taking over, server, point of sale, anything on those lines. In mobile, because all apps are in containers, the only way to actually be persistent is to compromise the device, to elevate privileges, to do something, get a malicious profile on there from an iOS standpoint. So device attacks are the focal point, the end-all, be-all from an attacker standpoint, and therefore also from a prevention standpoint and detection standpoint. The 3 others, malicious apps, network attacks, phishing attacks, those are all attack vectors that are predominantly designed in some way, shape, or form to lead to a device exploit. Now, clearly things like phishing, major problem. 90% of breaches start with a phishing attack, and 2/3 of emails are read on mobile. But you can give up credentials on something like that. But it also, once the website is being processed, can deliver malware or some other exploit to attack the device. It's also important to note that from a targeted attack standpoint, a major attack vector is a network attack. It is, if I'm targeting XYZ company, I'm not going to drop an app in the App Store and pray somebody from XYZ company downloads it. So malicious apps are not really the focal point from a corporate enterprise standpoint, and we're the enterprise guys. I might try phishing, but the easiest and fastest way to do it is to set a fake Wi-Fi network up directly across the street from XYZ's headquarters, find somebody, attack it, compromise the device, done. So quite often the bad guys own the network in mobile, which is very different than traditional endpoints. So why do enterprises need mobile threat defense like us? Well, if you look at the corporate governance, that's the predominant stuff that's on mobile devices today. Encryption, VPNs, email gateways for corporate email, for phishing. Now it's important to note in mobile, there's also personal email. There's also messenger apps. There's also text. So the traditional corporate phishing solution, for instance, doesn't cover the mobile side except for the corporate email only, and then you've got containers. So because there was nothing to actively detect those 4 attack vectors, that's why Zimperium was formed. That's why Gartner has now referred to this market space as mobile threat defense. And since everybody on this phone is involved in traditional endpoint security, because of obviously talk about Defender ATP, this is the way that Gartner, this comes from the market guide, market buyer's guide. You can download it off our site for mobile threat defense. They basically say that MTD is the mobile equivalent for the 60% that are uncovered of EPP and EDR platforms like Defender ATP. So just give you a little bit of a frame of reference. Gartner, because of the fact that the bad guys own the network so often, Gartner has really started to talk about the fact that the on-device protection is huge. We've actually always known that. We have one core detection engine called Z9. Z9 is trained up in the lab to detect both known and unknown attacks across the 4 vectors. But then it actually does all of its machine learning based detection on device. So we've known that you have to do all of your detection on device, because if you don't, when the bad guy owns the network, your protection vanishes. So that is a huge advantage and huge capability of Zimperium. Main product that is used to protect employee devices, the one that is tied in with Defender ATP, is our product called ZIPS. It stands for Z Intrusion Prevention System. It is EPP EDR for mobile. It runs on your device 100% of the time to protect that device and all the data that's on that device. Another huge advantage of doing all the on-device detection is it's completely cloud agnostic. You can put this on any solution whatsoever. So for instance, of all the major competitors, we're the only one that can function on Azure, which is another reason that we are good friends with the folks in Redmond. We integrate in with the largest set of UEMs, including multiple UEMs at the same time and in the same tenant. That has become huge, especially as people, for instance, have been moving to Microsoft Intune for MAM, for BYOD, which Brian can touch on briefly in our integrations. And then we provide all information into SIMs, and in the case we're talking about today, into Defender ATP. So that's the, one last comment. When we talk about being EDR, mobile EDR, that we're equivalent to that, traditional EDR, like Defender ATP for traditional endpoints, does all the correlation for those endpoints in the cloud. They take a whole bunch of forensics, a whole bunch of data, they take it up to the cloud, and then they do the analysis up there. Again, because of the fact that the bad guy quite often owns the network in mobile, the key to mobile EDR is to do all of that correlation on device. And there's multiple reasons that that actually needs to occur. One I've already hit. If the bad guy owns the network, you can't rely on a cloud-based correlation from a mobile standpoint. Others are around scenarios where privacy and other use cases, whether it's BYOD or GDPR or CCPA in California, come in, throwing a whole bunch of data up that might be privacy violating in order to do the correlation and the analysis is a problem. Not to mention the fact, of course, you're using the data program, you're burning battery, everything on those lines. So when ZIPS detects activities on device, it does all the correlation, then it sends the forensics up to be able to do SOC analysis. That forensics and that data is what gets thrown into Defender ATP. So with that, I'm now going to turn it over to Brian, who's going to talk about our Defender ATP integration.
All right, thank you, JT. So over the last few years, Microsoft has really done a lot of investment and focus in the security area. And you can see how, in the marketplace, how this has paid off with a lot of leadership and strength that they've had in security components. Last year, they were named to 5 different Gartner Magic Quadrants across their security portfolio, across access management, UEM, EPP, CASB, enterprise information archiving. Zimperium, we already have an integration across a lot of these areas, and we're continuing to add to those integrations going forward with Microsoft. So Zimperium, we have the most comprehensive integration today across the Microsoft products in the MTD industry. Our integration points, span first with Azure Active Directory for identity management and conditional access, as well as with their endpoint management solution, formerly known as Intune, for both managed and unmanaged devices. So yeah, those BYOD devices is something that we worked very closely with Microsoft recently and launched that to have that, to bring that MTD protection to those BYOD or unmanaged devices. So now you can enforce app protection policies that make sure that those BYOD devices are protected, with the Zimperium Zips app protection. And if we do detect any kind of threat, we can use the conditional launch capabilities of that Intune MAM to block access to different enterprise applications, like Office 365 apps, and a lot of different apps from Microsoft, and even third-party apps that include the Intune MAM SDK. So we've also built upon that integration now and leveraged that with the Windows Defender ATP integration, where now we can take those threats that we collect from the mobile devices and send those over to Defender ATP for analysis and EDR response actions. So Microsoft Defender ATP has a variety of different functions. The area that we're kind of focused in on with our integration is around that endpoint detection and response. So, like JT mentioned, Microsoft Defender ATP today is focused mostly around, the traditional endpoints, Windows, Macintosh, and with the integration with Zimperium, we now bring those, those other 60% of those endpoints, the mobile devices. We allow those threats and alerts to be also integrated into Defender ATP so that they can be researched, analyzed, and the SOC team can take action on those threats. So we provide that kind of single pane of glass view by integrating all those threats. So all these customers today that are using Defender ATP, their SOC teams are doing investigation on these alerts. They've got response actions, some of them automated, set up. Now they can now integrate all their mobile threats into that same view. And we've done this integration in close cooperation with Microsoft, and we've done some things that really stand out from all the other MTD solutions out there. First of all, one of the things is that Zimperium, we have the widest variety of threat detections available on the MTD solutions, as well as very detailed forensics data that can be used for analysis of those threats. So we bring all those strengths of the comprehensive threat detection and forensics. We bring that into what we report into Defender ATP. We allow advanced threat hunting to be done within that Defender ATP console, which can be done at a user level. To be able to say, hey, I want to see all the threats that might have be against my CTO or my CEO, my C-suite, or at a device level. And we also will, if there's a threat detected on a device and that threat is mitigated because we do have actions that if a threat is detected, we inform the user, or we take some automated actions to remediate that threat, then the threat status is automatically going to be updated within Defender ATP. So you always know, what is the currently active risk posture of that device within the Defender ATP console.
So Brian, a question for you. Yeah, to me, it seems like this is a really big deal. I mean, the fact that you can actually have an integrated view of all of these different endpoints. It's a great move by Microsoft to do this. Because people think of Microsoft as the traditional side, but for them opening this up and then a lot of the work that we've done with them, it just seems like that's a huge deal.
Yeah, absolutely. Their customers are already using Defender ATP today. It would be, outlandish for them to want to use multiple different consoles, to manage their different endpoints. We give them that single pane of glass view where they can go in, they can see all their endpoints, they can see across, for a particular user, all their devices and all the threat state of all those devices of that particular user.
That's awesome. Yep, so now what we're going to do is we're actually going to pop over and Brian's going to show you a demo. Let me actually get rid of that just to make sure. He's going to show you a demo of some of the key parts of our integration itself. And we'll make this full screen. Oh, no, I guess I made it the opposite of full screen. Hold up, there we go. All right, we'll just leave it that way.
All right. So yeah, this is showing you an example of Defender ATP console in the Defender Security Center. So this is the dashboard view. So you can see the mobile threats are now integrated into that dashboard view, alongside their other endpoint threats. So our data is included in the alerts queue. So you'll see the threat names that are in our Zimperium Z console will also be the same threat names that are included in Defender. And one of the advantages that we provide compared to other solutions is, the forensics details. So we send a lot of forensics details into Defender, and we also provide a direct link from within Defender to Zimperium's console if you want to go through a deep analysis of the forensics details by the SOC analysts. So we provide a view of those threats within Defender ATP, both by device and by user. So first we can click into a particular device. You can see the current risk level of that device, that mobile device, how many alerts are currently active on that device. So all that data there consolidated in one place. Also, we have the user-based view as well. So that's one thing that we do is we are able to get that user context from the Azure Active Directory and include that in what we send over to Defender. So now you can see for a particular user the history of threats and alerts that have been received, and as well as the status. So you can see some of these threats are in a resolved state, some are in a new state. So we do update that status dynamically. The other thing that we enable by providing that variety and comprehensive threat data into Defender and those detailed forensics is for the customer to be able to do advanced threat hunting within the Defender ATP console. So here's an example that we set up here of an advanced threat hunting query, where you can really identify if a particular threats and alerts that are received on a mobile device are indicators of a targeted attack on that organization. So not just looking at a single isolated threat on that mobile device, but looking for a certain pattern of threats or a threat chain that occurs on that mobile device that really indicates that this device is under a targeted attack. And if if this attack pattern is, we find a match within Defender ATP, then you can generate a special alert, to the admin that this is something that needs investigation.
Perfect. Anything else, Brian? Are we good? Stop there.
On that one.
Well, that is perfect. So that concludes our formal part, and we'd like to see if anybody has any questions, or Brian, if there's anything else that you would like to add to this mix. Any other last minute thoughts? Maybe things we haven't covered.
Yeah. So the Defender ATP integration, it's available now. We encourage you to try it out. Again, we think it's, there's a lot of unique capabilities here in this integration. It's going to really allow you to have that single pane of glass view across all your endpoints, be able to do that advanced hunting and threat hunting, so you can really, isolate down to the threats that matter the most, to you and your organization.
That's perfect. Thank you so much. Yeah, and to me, what it does is it continues to reinforce the fact that, I get to brag on us just a little bit, reinforce the fact that we are the enterprise leader in MTD. Integrations like this, ability to go beyond, the additional level of forensics, the ability to host on any cloud, the ability to handle multiple UEMs in the single tenant. All of these things just continue to talk to the fact that we understand the enterprises, which is why we protect more enterprises than anybody else. So it makes sense. Well, thank you all. I don't see any questions coming in. And so we will give you guys a few minutes of your time back. If anybody does have any questions, feel free to reach out. I do suggest downloading that market buyer's guide from Gartner. Those guys are really understanding this space quite well. It talks a little bit about the Defender ATP integration amongst others. But if you have any other questions, feel free to reach out. And thank you, everybody, and have yourself a great day.